Hey Gators, I'm PA Connor, and this is Well Up on the Down Low, a wellness video series presented by Residential Life here at SF State. First off, if you had the chance to catch episode 1, welcome back. If this is your first time, thank you so very much for tuning in. Well Up on the Down Low is a monthly mental health and wellness video series hosted by me that touches on a particular topic and gives you insight and resources on how to manage that very same topic. If you haven't had the chance to, I really recommend going and checking out episode 1, where I explore exactly how to live on campus in times like this. Let's get into the episode. As some of you may know, the month of October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So, in recognition, we've decided to make today's topic relationships. And when I say relationships, today I'll mainly be focusing on romantic relationships. But keep in mind, a lot of what I'll be exploring today and the tips and insight that you'll hear can be applied to multiple types of relationships. To start our exploration of romantic relationships, why don't we just start with the basics? What is a romantic relationship? Well, to use a definition that quite frankly I got off Google, a romantic relationship is a voluntary relationship between individuals who intend for one another to be a significant part of their ongoing lives in some romantic capacity. Now, yeah, of course, a lot of you know what a romantic relationship is, and have either been in one or been close to someone who has been in one. Especially here in college, as young adults, there seems to be a big expectation and even a little bit of pressure to be involved in one. And really, this is mostly due to the fact that a lot of us are in an extremely pivotal point in our lives, a point where growth and experiences are plentiful. And so naturally, we're going to focus a little bit more on relationships that we have with other people. And even though they may seem plentiful, especially now around the holidays when it seems like everywhere you look, you have a couple going to the pumpkin patch or getting pumpkin spice lattes together, this by no means signifies that romantic relationships are at all easy. Involving yourself in a fruitful romantic relationship takes a lot of energy from all parties involved. And truthfully, there's really no clear-cut mold for what the perfect or ideal relationship should be. Everyone brings their own unique values and contributions to the relationships that they're in, so they can really take a lot of different forms. However, there are a variety of different characteristics that folks should strive to have in their own relationships, to be positive that they are healthy and beneficial to everyone involved. According to experts, there are 3 main characteristics that contribute to a strong, healthy relationship. Number 1, mutual respect, which basically means that you both hold each other in high regard. You admire them for certain qualities that they possess or the character they embody, and that inherently brings value to the way you see them. The second characteristic is mutual trust. What that really boils down to is that you take each other at your word. So if one person says they're going to do something, the other person is certain that they'll actually do it. Or if one person makes a mistake, the other person can expect them to be honest and tell them. In fact, that's really what trust comes down to. Honesty, even when it's really uncomfortable. And finally, number 3, mutual affection. And yes, some people do have difficulty showing affection as easily as others, but really what that means is that affection is freely given and received, without the expectation of anything in return, other than that respect and trust back. But that also means that any affection that's given in a relationship isn't taken for granted. And actually, one more note on affection. Some of you may have heard the phrase love language. What is a love language? A love language is one of 5 ways that romantic partners express and experience love. And they are words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. Each one is really important, and they express love in their own way. And really, learning you and your partner's primary love language will really help you to create a stronger bond. Now, of course, we can all agree that these are extremely important factors to have in a relationship. But some of you might be wondering, how can you go about implementing these things? How can you tell if they're already there? And what can you do if you're really having trouble with one or the other? And all of those are extremely valid concerns or questions that people might be having. To help some of you out with that, I've brought on someone who specializes in relationships and what makes them fruitful, strong, and healthy. Today, I'm bringing on Stacy Peterson from The Safe Place. Some of you may know what The Safe Place is, some of you may not, and that's okay. We'll make sure to touch on that later. So let's get into it. Hey Stacy, thank you so much for coming on and having this discussion with me. Why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi, I'm CeCe Peterson. I'm the manager of the Safe Place here on campus, which is our Survivor Advocacy Center. Cute little fun fact about me is that I grew up in New England and I am a huge Patriots fan. Whether you love that or hate that about me, it's true.
It really is great to have you on. And I mentioned the Safe Space earlier. Could you explain a little bit about the Safe Space, what their purpose is, what their goal is, and what resources they offer?
So the Safe Place is our Campus Survivor Advocacy Center. We provide support to survivors survivors of all types of sexual violence. That includes sexual assault, intimate partner violence, stalking, and sexual harassment. We really do try to help survivors go through all of their options for healing, reporting. They are informed and aware and are able to make a choice that makes sense for them. We are a crisis walk-in service, so if you are in crisis, give us a call. We'll get you in the same day. Even if you're not in crisis, we can get you in the same day. We see clients Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to noon or 1 to 4, and we're available by phone in those same hours.
Well, I really want to thank you and everyone at the Safe Space because I know you do a lot of good and you help a lot of people out. So why don't we get into the discussion? So as I mentioned to people earlier, trust is a very important aspect in relationships. What are some essential aspects that people should keep in mind when trying to create that initial trust and then maintain it throughout the relationship?
That's a great question because trust is the foundation for pretty much every relationship. And I think the way that we create a trusting foundation is through open and honest communication and the ability to respect independence. I think a lot of times we feel like in order to trust somebody, there are no boundaries, and that's actually not true. Boundaries are how we can create trust.
That's really great advice. And I know the importance of maintaining that trust is something that cannot be overstated. So moving on, I kind of informed everyone about what love languages are and how they kind of influence relationships a little bit. But maybe you can go a little bit deeper into what love languages are and how respecting and knowing your partner's love language can really benefit a relationship and the health of the relationship.
Yeah, love languages are a great way of increasing intimacy and connectedness in a relationship. Because when you know the love language your partner speaks, you can engage and choose activities that speak that language so that you can connect with them in a way that resonates with that person. For example, if your partner's primary love language is words of affirmation, you know that by telling them you did a great job or I really appreciate dinner last night is a way of showing them love and connecting with them. Versus if you're talking in a love language that's not their primary, like giving gifts, they may not respond to flowers the next day after a wonderful meal the same way they would by saying, thank you for cooking for me.
So love languages really can play an important role in relationships. And I know that if you are unsure of your love language, there are some quizzes you and your partner can take online and try to figure out exactly what your love language is. So the next thing I want to touch on is boundaries, because I know boundaries in a relationship are essential. So would you be able to tell us a little bit about how these boundaries can be communicated, established, and maintained in a healthy romantic relationship?
I am a huge fan of verbal communication when it comes to boundaries, and that they are a situation where they are negotiated and renegotiated at several phases. The boundaries you have at the start of a relationship may not be the boundaries that you have in the middle of a relationship or in a lifelong relationship. They're going to change and grow. So being able to sit down and have a conversation about each person's level of comfort with a situation and then negotiating a boundary that is comfortable for everyone, compromising on boundaries so that everyone is comfortable. Nobody is being held back or dragged forward, that there's a middle ground is really important. One of the things that we talk about with establishing boundaries is doing a relationship bill of rights, which is a set of expectations that exist within a relationship so that everyone knows clearly what is okay and clearly what's not okay. And then revisiting that bill of rights when needed.
So switching gears a little bit and trying to focus on some red flags that may appear or some things that people should look out for in relationships. So when it comes to trust, which we discussed earlier is an extremely important aspect of a relationship, what are some ways that people can safely address that broken trust between them and their partner?
With broken trust, I think the first thing to do is for the person who broke the trust to take responsibility for their own actions, to reach across the aisle and make a genuine apology. Now, I know we're taught what an apology is in kindergarten, like we're all taught to say sorry, but to actually make an apology, you need to own what you did, own the harm of what you did, offer to make amends, what you're going to do to repair the harm, and give the person the opportunity to actually share their thoughts and feelings about what you did to them. And that can be a really uncomfortable situation to sit with because when we're wrong, we don't like to be wrong. But you need to sit with that discomfort because that's where your growth is going to come.
And so, on that same note, what are maybe some early warning signs or things in a relationship that might pop up and suggest that that relationship is either manipulative, extortive, or controlling in any way?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's so funny because so much of what is unhealthy is fed to us in our rom-coms and our Disney movies as being healthy. Every time I start this conversation, the image that pops into my head is Beauty and the Beast. For lack of a better illustration of an unhealthy relationship. And I'm not talking about Gaston. Let's start a little bit with jealousy, because jealousy is a normal feeling. It's not unusual to feel jealous when we see somebody flirting with our partner, but the inability to be able to spend time with friends and family, the inability to participate in a group project without your partner freaking out that you're cheating on them, that you're not spending time with them, that you're choosing somebody else over them, that's a sign that we're crossing over into unhealthiness, right? Making you choose to spend time with them rather than going to class or skipping work or changing the way that we dress are all ways that controlling behavior begins. And then there's the bargaining. If you don't do this for me, then I'm going to do that to you. That's the extorted behavior, right? So an example, if you don't do my math homework, then I'm going to break up with you. If you don't buy me dinner, then I'm going to break up with you. Or if you don't have sex with me right now, I'm going to go have sex with somebody else. That's an extortive behavior that indicates that something's not healthy. I also think it's really important to have a conversation about gaslighting right now because it happens. And so gaslighting is emotionally and verbally abusive behavior that takes a situation and twists it around so that the person who causes harm convinces the person who's been harmed that it's their fault. And it happens across all different types of relationships. It happens in work relationships, it happens in friendships, it happens in families, and it definitely happens in unhealthy relationships. So if you go into a conversation and you're clear about how the other person's behavior has impacted you, and you come out of it thinking it's all your fault, that might be a sign that something's wrong.
Well, I really want to thank you again for coming on. I know everyone values what you have to say and can hopefully benefit from it.
Connor, thanks so much for inviting me in to have this conversation. I've really appreciated getting the chance to have this really important conversation. We don't have a chance to talk about what's healthy and unhealthy enough. And, it's great that you're doing this. I really appreciate your project.
That discussion really reminded me there are a lot of really good resources here on campus. To kind of wrap up today's video, I want to acknowledge that we are really surrounded by relationships, whether it be with a family member, a friend, a significant other, or even ourselves. And it's very important to seek out and do all you can to maintain the health of those relationships. And of course, as the saying goes, the phone works two ways. So it does take mutual energy to make a relationship healthy. And so I really hope today's video has given you all some insight and some things to try in your own romantic relationships to try to help them and push them to their fullest potential. And before I go, I want to remind you all again to wash your hands, social distance, and please wear a mask. This has been Well Up on the Down Low, hosted by me, PA Connor, an SF State Residential Life production. Tune in next episode, where I'll be discussing another mental health and wellness oriented topic, and giving even more insight and resources on how you yourself can manage them. I hope you enjoyed today's episode.